Okay, we had the new parts come through from the factory. We'll get them on the car ahead of FP1.
Hey, what's going on, guys? aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 33 today for the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 2, and hallelujah, finally we do have the ultimate tyre wear upgrade added onto our car, along with the major brakes update as well, so quite a significant step forward we're going to make on the chassis side of things. I think by the end of the episode we'll kind of focus more on maybe the aero, the engine, depending on how many points we have and how things are looking here after Hungary. But if you guys did miss the previous episode then at the German Grand Prix, be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. Frustrations there, got sabotaged mid-race. Hopefully I won't have the same thing here today, and you can see in the performance chart our car is looking very, very strong indeed. I think that's the biggest margin we've had actually, maybe apart from maybe the first one we had over Red Bull. You can see on the left-hand side, pretty much the same gap there to Red Bull as we had initially. Then Red Bull leveled the playing field for quite a few races. We're actually ahead of us by 2 races, and now we're once again ahead. Ferrari make a small step forward to maybe catch Red Bull. You can see though the top 3 are now Ferrari, Red Bull and us at Haas. We're pulling away a bit, and there's a bit of a midfield pack forming of Force India, Mercedes, McLaren, and even Renault are catching up to McLaren, which is a real shame to see. I still bang on about it, about the fact that McLaren have been nerfed so badly here, but it was just because it was so different, pre-patch now, and so now there's this actual solid midfield being formed by these 4 teams. And Mercedes, although they're starting to upgrade a little bit, you can see Force India are doing really well to streak ahead, so I expect them, just like at the German Grand Prix, to be pretty strong, and we'll see how Mercedes do around Hungary. In theory, they might go a little bit better, but also at the same time, it's never been a particularly strong track for the Mercedes team. And then you can see, looking at the bottom half of things, you can see Sauber doing some really great work there to streak away quite massively, actually. I think they've got the biggest gap to their quote-unquote rivals than any other team. They're streaking away from Williams and Toro Rosso, who are still battling each other, and Sauber, by the end of the season, might just catch up to Renault if they're quick enough on the updates. Obviously, that kind of gap we saw closed up by McLaren last season in Season 1, so who knows if Sauber have enough resource points to kind of bank up there, they might be able to do that. But of course, eventually, maybe in like 3 or 4 episodes time, I would assume we're eventually going to get notice of if there's going to be any kind of R&D regulation change, so we'll have to see how it goes for teams like Sauber, McLaren, Mercedes, Force India, how all that develops, of course. For us though, I expect us to be able to continue this sort of path. Obviously, we've got a decent amount of R&D points coming in every single race, so hopefully we can try and keep ahead of Red Bull and Ferrari. But Red Bull gave us a bit of a scare last race, so we kind of needed this booster here at the Hungarian Grand Prix to kind of pounce back at them. But let's see how the 1 lap pace goes then. I think there might be a spot of rain, to be honest, so it might be a tricky qualifying session, but nonetheless, let's get into it then and see how we do.
Good afternoon, race fans, and here we are again for qualifying at the Hungaroring. Who will have tuned the perfect setup for their car? We'll find out soon. So, could be a tasty one today then, Ants. We've got all the ingredients, that's for sure. Treacherous conditions, an ever-changing racetrack, and 1 or 2 cars just behind the pace setters who maybe, just maybe, fancy a bit of an upset after a good performance from them in free practice.
So like I said, some rain here at the Hungarian Grand Prix for Saturday, or well, not even some, a lot of rain here to start off things. It starts off with a heavy rain, so everyone out on full wet tyres, the blue wall, and basically you can see how I'm fast forwarding through the session because eventually it's going to get towards intermediate, so I thought there's no point really waiting, kind of almost like the MONACO Grand Prix, I think, earlier this season, when it started off full wets, and then if I waited long enough right at the end of the session, we filled up on fuel, so we've got just over 2 minutes left in this session to go, where we filled up for, I think, even maybe 3 laps here. We can maybe just about fit it in, or I think we can only fit in maybe 2 laps. We get to the end of our first flying lap there, and at the moment we're up in P7, but I'm going to continue going around. We fueled up enough, like I said, so we go on for a second flying lap. We improve even more on that one, and then we go for a third flying lap there. You can see we have enough time. By the time we cross the line, it'll be the end of the session. At the moment we're in P8. Leclerc is ahead of us. You can see the need to improve, because if the Sauber's getting ahead of us, even at the end of this session, it just means the track is getting faster and faster, and so it's a good thing I did that, because we end up then in P3. Magnussen down in P10, that is, looking a little bit, maybe a little bit worried, and you can see there, Sebastian Vettel has been knocked out. Both Ferrari cars way down the order. Raikkonen got lucky, but Vettel, one of the main kind of, obviously in the championship, it's me a little bit ahead, some way ahead of Kevin Magnussen, and then Magnussen's quite some way ahead of Vettel. So Vettel's really the only other non-Haas challenger to me in the championship, and he is knocked knocked out in Q1. So that's one less fast car then to worry about in the race so we can get through into Q3. Obviously, we have to try and survive Q2 first. So here we are then, intermediate still here in the second session. You can see we're on the flying lap here in the middle of Sector 2 to the end. And to Sector 3, you get massively held up by the Hamilton there. Kind of puts me off completely. And we nearly slammed the car into the wall. That could have been our qualifying over. Thankfully, the tyre just kind of hit perfectly, you know, square on to the wall there. And so if anything would have happened, it would have kind of pushed in the suspension into the chassis and potentially into my front legs. But yeah, thankfully we survived that, but we lost a lot of time there. I mean, I was going to get put off by Hamilton anyway, but then it was the fact that because he was on the left, I went a little bit tighter on the line, got on the curbing you saw, and then, yeah, completely lost the car. So we're going to have to go for a second flying lap then. We fueled up enough. It's the end of the session. You can see we've got less than a minute left in the session. So by the time I cross the line, I don't know if I'll have enough time to go for another run. So this is pretty much my last attempt. And so that was a little bit worrying for me. I'm, you know, down in P15. That was meant to be my one lap that I did it on, but Hamilton blew that for me. So I had to try and find the time here in the second lap. Thankfully, obviously, as I said, I fueled up enough because I was going to do the same thing I did in Q1 and just go for a few laps then and get faster and faster and kind of suss out where the grip is. And so through the final corner then, we are going to come across the line and we will thankfully get into Q2. And look who got knocked out of Q2, Lewis Hamilton. I'm not going to say anything but karma. That's karma once again. Before it happened as well, remember, Valtteri Bottas held me up one time in a session and he got knocked out in Q2 subsequently. And it happened again to Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, I mean, I know you guys enjoyed it last time out when I said that because you guys referenced back to when Fernando Alonso said karma to Jolly and Palmer in the Italian Grand Prix last year, but definitely is a bit of karma for me personally, I feel, for Hamilton to be knocked out there. So that's two key players then knocked out in two different sessions of qualifying then, and so we're through into the top 10 shootout. You can see very overcast as obviously the rain's thankfully stopped for us, so it's a bit of an interesting session here because now everyone doesn't really know how each other's going to perform here in dry conditions. I didn't really even know how much grip I was going to have there into turn one. I thought I took that quite cautious, and so now we're just trying to do the best job we can. At the moment, Daniel Ricciardo sets the provisional pole time, a little bit wide in the last corner, but we're going to go across the line then, and we're going to have to try and find some more time potentially. So we're going to go to a second flying lap then. Of course, we have plenty of ultra soft tyres to burn, having not used any in Q1 and Q2. So at the moment, Fernando Alonso is ahead of us, Van Dorn's behind us, we're down in P8, so it hasn't been a great first lap there, but you can see we went purple in the second sector, but in the last sector is where I'm losing some time here, as Verstappen now goes fast of all. So the Red Bull cars, once again, like at the German Grand Prix, are looking very, very strong indeed. But here we come across the line. What will it be? It's going to be P5 in the end, and Kevin Magnussen will out-qualify us once again in P3 there. So Magnussen does a much better job, but to be fair, we're not too far off Magnussen, but you can see the Red Bull of Ricciardo has a lot more pace over Magnussen, and then also Fernando Alonso. Let's talk about him for a second. Pops up in a very surprising second place. So to say, you know, looking back at that performance chart, McLaren getting swamped a little bit by Mercedes and Force India, Alonso pulls it out of the bag. Of all places, Hungary, where McLaren usually go quite well, for a front row start there for the McLaren car. Really good showing there from the Spaniard, and so we might have quite a tasty race on our hands trying to race the Mexican, our teammate, and the Spaniard and the Aussie man ahead of us. So let's go to the intro, then go to the full grid, knowing that the likes of Hamilton and Vettel are way down the order, and so we might have a very good chance of bagging not only a good podium, but if, you know, maybe Ricciardo's a little bit slower in the race than he is in qualifying, because you saw Verstappen fell off a little bit, maybe even another race win to add to our tally this season. Let's get into it.
It's always wonderful to come back to the lively Hungaroring. A popular destination this, nice and close to the beautiful city of Budapest, with some exciting racing to boot. Who can forget Michael Schumacher pushing his old teammate Rubens Barrichello up towards the pit wall in 2010, or those great races of 2014 and 2015 as well. Located 12 miles northeast of the Hungarian capital Budapest, the 14 corners of the Hungaroring are steeped in history and prestige. Overtaking has always been difficult on this technical 2.7-mile circuit, but the last few years in particular have turned up some exceptional races. Let's hope we're in for another one here today. With me to enjoy it all is Anthony Davidson, a man who made his Grand Prix debut here with Minardi back in 2002. So Ant, this is a bit of a special one for you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd say so. I also stood in to commentate on Jensen's win in 2006, and as I was a test driver for Honda at the time, you can imagine that was quite an emotional Grand Prix. It's also a tough circuit on the drivers, this one too. Lots of long, slow corners that require a lot of patience from inside the car. Plus, it's a very downforce heavy circuit. I mean, it's all relative of course, but if you're lacking a bit in downforce, or if you've got a bit of an imbalance in the setup, this is definitely one of the worst places to have to deal with that.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, and starting alongside is Fernando Alonso. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Magnussen, Perez, the engineer, and Van Dorn, Ocon, Bottas, Verstappen, and Kimi Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Hartley, Gasly, Ericsson, Lance Stroll, and Sergei Sorokin. Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel starts from the back of the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
So not only were they going to be starting away from the top 10, but now Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton have been handed more penalties, and so both of them are going to be starting on the back row. Very, very odd. It's almost like they're doing a last question mark challenge, and they're meant to be on the front row. Vettel last and Hamilton second last. Very, very odd. And it's going to be interesting to see how far they can get up the order here, and probably more of a testament to how much traffic they might face here at Hungary. Probably one of the most difficult circuits to really try and pass, just like Monaco. You know, it is basically Monaco without the barriers, like they say. But our strategy is going to be a one-stop. And after our ultimate tyre upgrade, I would like to think we can make that one stop very easily with soft to mediums. Obviously a free tyre selection because we all qualified in Q2 on intermediate. So here we go then. So 5 red lights of the Hungarian Grand Prix, round number 14 of this season. The lights are out and we're underway from P5 on the grid. Very, very dusty starting grid here, and we get a shocking start actually compared to the Force India of Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon, as Kevin Magnussen has taken the lead of the Grand Prix from third place. He's shot up down the middle of Fernando Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo, as Alonso now tries to fend off Sergio Perez. We've been overtaken by Van Dorn there. Alonso on the outside of Perez. I try a similar thing on the outside of Van Dorn. Does not work out. We're down to P6, so a shocking start for us. We just managed to stay ahead of Esteban Ocon though, but there goes Magnussen from Ricciardo. Alonso just ahead of Perez, who's really pressurising him, and then you've got Van Dorn and myself chasing after. You've got, I think, Bottas there. That was around the outside of the high-speed chicane, and then of course you've got those two guys right at the back, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, and by the end of lap 1 they're still there in second last and last place. You can see all those cars are going to have to overtake this afternoon. It's going to be a very, very tough job for them as we move through then this race. Ricciardo chasing after Magnussen with DRS there now as we're past lap 3, obviously activated, and Alonso sticking through in third place. He's got that gap now to Sergio Perez and Van Dorn. You can see I'm trying to pressurise Van Dorn. I'm trying to keep up with him, but at the moment they've got some great pace, and I think I'm losing a lot of time on the straights because I've got quite a high downforce here at Hungary, which helped me out in qualifying yesterday, and generally around 1 lap in clean air it benefits me. But in a race scenario, I think I've maybe made a mistake and gone a little bit too high on downforce, because the McLaren of Van Dorn and also Perez, they're too quick for me in a straight line at the moment. I can't catch them. I can already tell it's going to be a bit of a frustrating afternoon, and especially even more so if Magnussen's able to stay in that lead ahead of Ricciardo and Alonso. But I'm hoping the way that Ricciardo and Alonso are sticking with Magnussen and pulling away from Perez, that they might be able to do something about it, because of course he might be my teammate, but he is my championship rival. But here we go then, fighting Van Dorn finally towards the end of lap 3. Then down the inside we go, the second last corner, oh so close. Literally our tyres were like connected there on the sidewall to sidewall of the tyre through that corner. We just about managed to squeeze through up into P5, but as you can see with DRS even on Perez, I just can't catch him at all, making no headway even with overtake mode. And you know what, Van Dorn is even keeping up with us there, even with us having DRS. So I think it's definitely something I've made a mistake on. Like I said, but we're just gonna have to live with it. Obviously, Parc Fermé is there, so we couldn't change anything going into the race. So I have to just deal with what I've done here. I have to try and make the best of it. So here we go now, trying to overtake Perez then on lap number 4. You can see purple in the second sector, so we've got some still decent pace, but the overall pace of the lap then, especially in sectors 1 and 3, where Perez is faster than me and keeping me up then in sector 2, is just not helping this situation. You can see on the minimap how big the gap is growing then to third place Fernando Alonso, and Alonso, Ricciardo and Magnussen all very close together, so all 3 of them are waltzing away from this other smaller 3 pack of Perez, myself and Van Dorn. So at this early stage of the race I don't really have have any kind of answers of what we can do. I mean, we can't really try anything new on the strategy because it is a one-stop for a lot of us. I think all of us have started on the soft tyre, so there's nothing even clever I can do by pitting early because I'll just wreck my tyres then on the second stint as Van Dorn now actually attacks us on lap 7 here, down the inside with DRS of his own. We've got DRS back on him. I tried to straighten the car faster than he did on the exit, but it just hasn't worked, and he's just got the traction away from us. And of course that McLaren engine in the back is still very, very decent from the upgrades they made this season, patch or no patch, and so we're down back to P6, and we have to go again and try and re-overtake the papaya orange McLaren Honda as we try and close up, maybe make a move into this next sector. We're going to climb up the hill and look around the outside, you can see, but then getting hit with some dirty air opposite lock and ultimately have to stick behind. You can see getting so close, literally touching Van Dorn through the chicane, but you know, like the case is at Monaco, there's actually nowhere to actually go then to make the pass. So yeah, I probably sound like I'm whining quite a lot in the cockpit, but really, honestly, whilst I was driving this race, it was the most frustrating thing in the world because I knew for sure I had more pace than this. Like, it doesn't look like they're holding me up because they're getting away from me now, but if you know what I mean, over the course of the lap, they are holding me up because I'm a faster car here in this section, clearly, and you can see once again trying to go around the outside. This time we might have the traction for it as Van Dorn gets a little bit wayward on the exit, and so we're going to try a big dive on the outside to the inside then for that chicane. We do eventually get it, and we're back up into P5 then, so it might have to be a case of I'm going to have to try these ballsy moves and really make a big dive for it if I'm wanting to make these passes, because I need to get in that clean air on the mini-map, because you can see actually it's just growing and growing, that gap to Fernando Alonso, and I'm assuming it's still Ricciardo in second, and so my teammate and my main championship rival still in first place, and I'm just losing more time to him. And so we're going to try looking around the outside here for a moment, but we don't really get alongside Perez any kind of way on lap 11 is we're going to move on to lap 12. We're getting, you know, closer and closer to the halfway stage of this race, and when we're going to make that first and only pit stop of the race onto medium tyres. So I need to desperately try and get ahead of Perez now, because then I want to have clean air, especially onto the medium tyres, where obviously that tyre doesn't perform as well as this tyre anyway. So we're gaining with overtake mode. DRS, we're going to make a big Ricciardo-esque dive bomb there down the inside, ride the curbing on the inside, and Perez does give us the room on the outside, but he's still there. Look at that, the way he climbs, that Mercedes engine working really well, and just less drag obviously from the aerodynamics of his car, having less downforce on his setup, but we do manage to hang it on the outside then of the next left-hander and keep it up in P4. And so now thankfully I'm going to try and push away from Perez and try and close up on Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo and Magnussen, who are still all close together. So let's see what we can do about them as we move on later into this Grand Prix. You can see that we are pulling away from Perez. The gap is visually a lot bigger already to Sergio Perez and is getting smaller to Fernando Alonso up ahead. And it's only a couple of laps then to come in for our first pit stop for medium tyres on lap 15. So we're going to have 20 laps to go on mediums, but I mean the soft tyres really didn't have too much tyre wear, to be honest. I was quite surprised that, you know, I was sticking behind Van Dorn and Perez in so much dirty air, you know, ragging the neck of the car, you know, trying to find all the time through the corners, and was surprised how the soft tyres felt towards the end. I could have probably could have gone maybe 2-3 more laps, but there would have been no point because there's no way I can make a set of ultra soft tyres actually go the distance around Hungary due to the big leap here at the Hungarian Grand Prix in terms of tyre compound leaping that far down to the middle and then the last compound of tyre. So we may as well just come in now, but that will be, you know, a good thing then towards the end of this race. The medium tyres should keep in quite well, and maybe that's really a sign then of the ultimate tyre wear. Maybe that's why I really didn't feel it. Maybe that's why eventually I was able to maybe get it on Van Dorn and Perez. Maybe their tyres started to go off, but you can see here out the pit lane, and Ricciardo has come in, and I think that's also Fernando Alonso is in. He's trying to catch up to some traffic there of the Renault continues on, and then also the other Force India of Ocon is still continuing on in this race, as well as Magnussen for one more lap there. So Alonso and Ricciardo trying the undercut maybe on Magnussen. Alonso might not work though because he's in traffic, but Ricciardo had a decent amount of clean air there. There wasn't too much space between him and Ocon, so we stay with this replay camera then all the way till the point where the next lap is coming in, and Magnussen is going to come in for his pit stop then. So it's a bit of a Haas pit stop clip show here at the moment. So Magnussen's going to come in for his medium tyres, and let's keep an eye then once he comes down the pit pit lane, where on earth Ricciardo is going to be. And let's see if that undercut has made the difference here. So onto those white wall tyres, no issues there. Obviously, no one in the pit lane with Magnussen. Looks like a ghost down there down the pit lane. So no issues being held up with traffic like I had last race at Germany. And here comes Magnussen. Then where is that Red Bull car? Where is Ricciardo? There he is. He pops in around the outside. And so Ricciardo takes the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Magnussen down to P2 now. He's still ahead of P3 Alonso, as Alonso did in fact get held up there by the traffic of the Renault Carlos Sainz, I think his fellow countryman. And so Magnussen's going to have some work to do to try and retake the lead maybe. As now, speaking about making overtakes, Van Dorn now with DRS open to overtake Perez then. So the McLaren are looking pretty good, although you can see there Van Dorn is on a set of ultra soft tyres. So very strangely, McLaren are trying a two-stop with Van Dorn, which I don't understand because there's just no reason, there's no point. I just don't understand it. But now on to lap 19, we've got a radio message here.
Some information on Alonso. They seem to have an issue.
4 laps after our pit stop then, and everyone's pit stops, my engineer tells me Alonso has an issue there and he's going slow, and that is very evidently showing here by the time we get to the very next lap 20, and we're already caught up to the Spaniard there. You can see he's losing time every single corner and the straights as well, and so that's really gutting for him because, you know, he started on the front row, he was still looking good for a podium because I'm not going to lie, I didn't feel like I was going to actually catch Alonso. I didn't think, at least at the pace of the soft tyre, maybe on the medium tyre, I might have caught him, who knows, but at the moment we're going to get a very easy pass then on the outside of the last corner onto the main straight. We still have to do the work then with DRS open and down the main pit straight, but Alonso now, I don't know if he's going to go back and back and back now with those issues. I don't know how hard those issues are going to hit him, but we are now up into P3, and so we've got a lot of clean air. Let's get our head down then and try and see what we can do against Magnussen. Who knows, if Magnussen fights Ricciardo hard enough, I mean, those two on the mini-map are pretty much nose to tail, so if they fight hard enough, maybe we have a slight tiny chance of catching them if they fight that hard and go side by side enough. But speaking about Alonso then losing time and going backwards in this Grand Prix, it's going to be a bit of a depressing moment of the video if you're a Fernando Alonso fan, because yeah, third place, like I said, second row, and now he's down to P4. He's going to be P5 pretty damn soon because that Force India is right on the back of him there. And to be honest, I'm peeved off because I've made no kind of way of trying to hide it. I'm annoyed that McLaren got the nerf because I was really going to start enjoying Alonso and Van Dorn being up there fighting myself and the Red Bull and the Ferrari and being well ahead of Mercedes. But now that Force India have just got a free pass to be there in the top 10, it's kind of irked me because I've never had too much kind of love-in with Force India as a team. I mean, obviously they're a good midfield team, but I've never had a huge affinity with them. So to just see them waltz up here in the top 10 out of nothing, it still kind of annoys me to this day. But anyway, Alonso keeps on losing time and time, and he gets overtaken eventually by Valtteri Bottas, the lead Mercedes car in this race. Speaking about Mercedes, if you're wondering, Hamilton and Vettel absolutely nowhere in this Grand Prix. They've just had no pace, and they've been hit with traffic every single lap pretty much. But speaking about pace then, as we move on then towards lap 29, so a fair few laps after we overtook Alonso, just like I say, got our head down, and we've actually found some decent pace there, setting our personal best lap time now of the Grand Prix. And look at the mini-map there, Magnussen has dropped off the cliff to Ricciardo there. Like, you can see where Magnussen's silver dot is, and you can't even see Ricciardo's blue dot till now on the minimap, and he's going through the very next corner and into the next section of the track. So Ricciardo's completely dropped Magnussen, and once again the Red Bull is showing to be a very dominant force, at least. I don't know where Verstappen is in all this, to be honest, but Ricciardo is now flexing the muscles of that Red Bull aero, and he's getting away from Magnussen. I don't know if Magnussen's being hit with tyre wear or an issue of his own, because I was very surprised how quickly I was catching him then at this late stage of the race, because I just assumed, okay, the medium tyres, they're going to be pretty horrendous. It's the medium tyre at Hungary. They're going to be so slow around here. They're not going to feel great, but I guess they are feeling even worse for Magnussen than they were for me, as now we watch Van Dorn re-overtake then. I think that's Ocon in this race down the inside. They're still side by side, actually, so Ocon gives him a good fight there, but Van Dorn trying to make up the time then on that two-stop. You can see there is Verstappen behind those two guys. So Verstappen way down the order in the lower half of the top 10 then, but then ahead of Van Dorn is going to be Fernando Alonso trying to chase after Bottas, still with those issues obviously. Then ahead of Bottas is Sergio Perez, then is myself there. You can see through in the last sector, there is Magnussen through the second last corner, and then there is Daniel Ricciardo with no one behind him, and he is just relaxing and soaking up this very enjoyable, dominant, what will probably end up being a race victory here at Hungary. But now, as we move on to lap 31, towards the last 4 laps of the Grand Prix we're now catching Magnussen, and we're also catching some traffic here with blue flags. So could I cause an upset to my teammate? He's looked stronger the entire weekend. He was in the lead of this Grand Prix for the entire first stint, but could we spoil the party and grab second place at the end of this race? Who knows? So the last corner then, he gets held up massively with blue flags, but eventually the blue flag car will get out of the way, and we open DRS, and down the main straight, it's very clear that Magnussen still will have a straight line speed advantage, but in the corners, I think I'm faster. I think he's struggling with tyres maybe. But as we go through the laps in lap 32, maybe a bit of deja vu for us right now with what we had with Perez and Van Dorn, and the fact that I can't get past Magnussen. I can catch up to him. I have the raw pace to actually catch him, but I don't actually have the raw pace then to overtake him, because like I said, I am running higher downforce. Generally, your teammate runs almost like a default setup, so he's going to have lower wings than I do, and so in a straight line, I don't actually have the speed to actually catch him, even on the main straight with DRS and ERS modes here. And so in the corners, I'm trying to do something, try and work to the left-hand side to then go to the right, or, try a fake here and go there, down the inside, round the outside. It's just not working at the moment. You can see I'm getting even held up through the last corner with the bad kind of mid-apex speed. But then, look at that on the main straight. It just gets the traction, and then with DRS even, I am gaining, but it's just not enough by the end of the straight then in the brakes on a turn 1 to make it happen, especially turn 1 here at Hungary is so open that you really need a lot more speed than the car ahead to actually even make a dive, because it's not like a hairpin corner exactly where it's such a straight line brake zone and such a tight apex. The corner opens up very, very quickly as you end the braking phase and start the acceleration phase. And so again, on lap 34, I just can't do anything with DRS there, and we're going to the last 2 laps of the Grand Prix, and I'm trying to scratch my head on where on earth can I try and overtake him. I'm trying to find the time in the corners. You can see I'm kind of getting desperate by going kind of too wide and deep into that left-hander and trying to find the speed, especially in this sector now as we start sector 2. I gain so much time up this hill there. The traction is ridiculous that I get on Magnussen here, but again, you can see he just does a great job, to be fair to him, to park it on the left-hand side. Unlike, remember, when Van Dorn, when I overtook him, he didn't park it on the left. He actually opened up the door for me to go around the outside, whereas Magnussen did not there. And so we move on to the last lap of the Grand Prix, and I'm stuck in the exact same place as I was the lap before, trying to do something. And again, Magnussen holds the racing line, unlike Van Dorn did previously, and I just can't do anything. And so I'm right up his gearbox here, and you're going to see for the entire lap, I'm going to hound him. But, I mean, where do I go? I've got nowhere to actually overtake him. But to be fair, at the same time, this does show off how well the game has improved when it comes to your teammate. When he's not in dirty air, when he's not in traffic, he doesn't have any issues on the car, he gives you a real square fight. And obviously, I also got to put my hands up. I put way too much downforce on this setup for the race. Obviously, it helped me out in qualifying, like I said, but it just didn't help here. And you can see through the second last corner, I get so desperate on the traction that I just plant the power way too early. And I just slam into the wall and embarrassed myself a little bit there with a red front wing. But yeah, I mean, I just got frustrated, slammed down the power, thought, oh, I'll try one last little bunt, but it just doesn't work. And so we come across the line for P3, frustratingly, but it's actually a great recovery drive, to be fair, to say we're down in P6 and stuck behind Van Dorn and Perez for so long earlier on in that race.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. So, how exactly did they set themselves apart from the pack today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So here come our winning drivers today, and what a race it was. There's been a big push at the factory lately to get these cars ready, and we can see the fruits of that labour today as Red Bull lift the winner's trophy.
So Ricciardo gets the win, and so it's 2 Red Bull wins then on the trot. So even though we got ahead of them on the chassis front there, this weekend, and we had that streak in the performance chart. Red Bull still look good, so I think it's time, like I said, to maybe focus on the engine department or the aero, where, you know, maybe we're lacking compared to Red Bull in the aero department, or, you know, we've got a slight advantage over Red Bull, but we can get more of an advantage on them in the engine department. But you can see anyway, because of our rivals, you know, Vettel, the Ferraris and Mercedes kind of not doing too great in the Constructors' Championship, we pull away even more in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. Obviously, we only lose 3 points then, 18 to 15 to Magnussen, so we're still looking uber comfortable in that kind of sense, so don't need to get too downhearted, but at the same time, it's also not great to lose to Red Bull twice in a row now after, on paper, our car is clearly the fastest car there, so something clearly went wrong this race for both us drivers there. But let's go to the final interview then, and then round out the episode.
Good day today. Tell us about it from your perspective. You scraped the walls a few times. Were you struggling for grip?
I think I'm going to say the car felt too heavy around those corners, because honestly it kind of did feel a bit too heavy with how much downforce I was running in that race, honestly.
Can you comment on your fuel issues during the race?
This is a pretty easy one, of course. Like I said, we just had way too much drag, but that was my fault, not really the department's fault, but in the end that might kind of do something to the aero department.
Great. Well, that's everything.
But in the end, of course, that drag was my fault. So, you know, I put my hands up. I'm not kind of, you know, complaining about the fact that the car just randomly felt slow. It was my own fault of running too much downforce. But, you know, you live and learn a little bit. So next time I know maybe to run a little bit less. But it also, in hindsight, did help us in quali. I might have not qualified as well if I didn't have that downforce. But we get an extra 500 R&D points there due to doing our team bonus. Of course, we had an easier team bonus this time around, so that will help us for upgrades. But then we get onto the contract negotiations. So before we get into negotiating our contract and once again negotiating with Haas, because remember, I want to finish off this season with Haas. I want to do the job, finish the job by winning the Constructors' Championship and my own Drivers' Championship with them. I just wanted to show you guys the actual reputation levels for all the other teams. You can see I have quite a good rep with all teams, in fact, but the highest ones being the case of Force India, Mercedes, McLaren and Renault, it looks like, and also Sauber there as well. A little bit less so for Red Bull and Ferrari, of course, as they're my main rivals. But obviously, when we get to the end of this season, I definitely will probably be looking to move away from Haas, and I've got a plethora of options to go for. It's going to be a tricky one to kind of decide where I want to go for. I don't know if any other team's going to tempt us, you know, with something that, you know, if one is kind of going to streak away ahead of the other. But, you know, right now we're going to negotiate once again our contract with Haas, and we're going to go for, again, level 3 on the upgrade perks, level 3 on the race bonus. This time around I'm going to go for a bit higher on the simultaneous development. So we're going to go for 3 things I can do on the simultaneous department, even though I don't even fathom doing 3 at the same time, but I may as well go for it. Going to go for, again, the medium team goal perk, first driver perk, and just adjust the race and the quali perk again. And like we had last time, I'm getting quite good, at least with Haas, at guessing where I need to, you know, put the contract basically there. And so we do sign that successfully. And so that just leaves us then with doing the upgrades we planned then on the engine at the end of this episode. So we're going to purchase an upgrade for the fuel efficiency, going even more into the fuel efficiency part of the tree. And then also we'll go a bit further on the ERS as well, making that a bit more kind of, you know, efficient and powerful there for our engine. So 2 minor upgrades going to add up to being quite a decent update that will see us maybe become the second fastest engine on the grid and get back ahead of McLaren then. So that'll be quite good, because McLaren have been second place, I think, for a lot of this season actually. So we may have been lacking, kind of neglecting the engine department. So for the first time we do 2 minors there. So I think that's going to wrap up the episode then. So if you guys did enjoy it, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Ava. Hope you enjoyed today, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.